Good seeing you.
Three in my house, I have black.
You're live.
Yeah, no, Michelle's.
Ready, Allison?
Michelle's coming. By the way, can you stay with me for 2 weeks? I think she wanted to do it herself.
Good job.
Okay.
I don't know, I haven't talked, I saw, I Lois and all. I thought, last night, yesterday, late yesterday, well, you probably have.
It's a Brownfield Plans. I think she should bring him in.
No.
That would set the meeting right off.
Let everybody pass.
Set the tone.
Yeah.
We can take turns on this here.
Yeah, I think. It's 9 o'clock, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We'd have to start out with the prayer. We have District number 1 at this time.
I'll sit on this side. So, well, yesterday I got a phone call and I noticed it said Will on there and I thought, oh geez, when I see Will's name, it's kind of like, maybe, you know, I treat him like maybe he's the principal. What did I do wrong? So he asked me to do the prayer and first I hesitated and I said, yeah, I'll do it. So here I am, kind of titled it the Prayer of Hope and Thanks. Starts off, thank you, Lord, for allowing us to gather here today. As a group, we especially want to thank the veterans, men and women that fought for this country, sacrificed their lives for our freedom so we can be here. Today's a special day. It's December 7th. 1941 is when Pearl Harbor was hit. A lot of people lost their lives that day. Lord, I'd also like to thank you for allowing us 7 to be, or have the privilege to be commissioners for Leelanau County. With that, I would like to ask that you give us guidance as commissioners to be more respectful to each other, listen to each other, and come up with better decision-making that will benefit the residents of this county. I'd also like to thank you, Lord, for our leaders at all levels, city, township, village, county, state, and even at the national level. We're in difficult times, Lord, and we need to work together as one. Lord, also give strength for the people in this world that are struggling for health reasons, finance, relationships, jobs, especially in our local community, because there are people out there struggling and they need your assistance. Lord, this is the season for when we do see a little respect and hope, kindness. But it only lasts for 3 weeks, Lord. I'd like to see it maybe continue on year round where there is more kindness in this world and respect towards each other. Lord, I'd like to thank you for the employees of this county, present and past. They made this county what it is. Also, Lord, be with all human race, that they can wake up in the morning and walk out of their house, feel safe, and have equality of one. Lord, I don't usually ask for miracles, but today I am going to ask for one. We do have a county employee and a spouse are fighting for their lives right now because of COVID. I've been told that maybe the one spouse is going to recover from it, but the one is unsure right now. I ask that you give her strength and guidance and give the other spouse comfort and support that they are able to survive this and continue on their relationship together. Also, Lord, would like to ask that there be peace on earth for all people. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. Will that bring us to the rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So that will bring us to a roll call.
Is that okay, or should we move that a little bit?
I see her already.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Robbins,
Here.
Commissioner Rushton.
She notified me that she will not be here.
Okay, so absent prior notice. Commissioner Bonnet.
Here.
Commissioner Wessel.
Here.
Commissioner Sotis Little.
Here, and I'm here in Leland Township with legal authorization as a caregiver. And I may have to leave this meeting a little bit early for a medical appointment, depending on the length.
Okay, I'll note that in the minutes. Present via Zoom, Leland Township caregiver. Commissioner Allgaier.
Present.
Commissioner Lautner.
Present.
Thank you. So then that brings us to approval of the agenda. I have just a couple items here, but I don't think they're late items. No. Any? Mr. Russell?
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes 6-0. Thank you for that. And that brings us then to public comment. This time, if you want to just come forward and speak, you have up to 5 minutes. Seeing none, then we'll move on then to communications proclamations. We have the administrator's update.
Good morning, and Ms. Evans, will you share the screen, please? All right, could you blow that up, please? Well, all right, we'll start with that. Merry Christmas.
See it all right?
I was told I had to use this photo. Commissioner Wessel said mandated that I use this photo on my cover. It's a picture of the Northport Christmas tree. It is a very beautiful Christmas tree. Every year in Northport, they put it up for quite a few years.
That's good.
And as you drive into town,
That's pretty.
yes. Yeah, all right, next slide. Next slide. There's a real. That's beautiful downtown cedar. It's a little tree, but it's growing. It's a live tree. We're looking towards the future, right? Mrs. Lauter, that's a tree in cedar, so.
We cut the last one down that got that big because we
Yeah,
didn't
so-
want it to get that big.
Yeah, so Merry Christmas to everyone. I know there's a live tree in Suns Bay too. I don't want to leave Suns Bay
There's
out.
one in Leland too.
Maybe in Leland too. So it's that time of the year. So Merry Christmas. Next slide, please. Commissioner Robbins talked about it briefly, but this is the 80th anniversary of Pearl Harbor. This is at the World War II Memorial several years ago honor flight. These are two people that I knew that were actually in Pearl Harbor. Unfortunately, they both passed away. One was Mrs. Martin. She volunteered and she was a nurse there in the hospital. And another one was Mr. Gibbs, who at that time was 97 years old when this picture was taken. Mr. Campbell, you were on that flight there with these two people. And so it was a great honor to see them there. And this is, you can't quite read the sign above them, but that's a memorial there to Pearl Harbor. So it was 80 years ago today. The only other person I knew that wasn't at Pearl Harbor was Ed Mazurek, Anna Mazurik's husband from Cedar. And he was there stationed there and he did survive. But he talked about that experience. It was a complete shock to everyone there. So it's been 80 years. I did see there was a reunion and there's about 100 veterans still left that were there that are alive, that are hopefully gathering there this morning. Probably the last gathering of veterans there at Pearl Harbor. So very emotional day, 80 years ago. So we cannot forget about their service. All right, Sugarloaf. That's a picture I took last week at Sugarloaf. If you have driven by there, you'll see that virtually all the buildings are gone. I think they've done an excellent job. It's cleaned up very well. It's fenced in. The fence is professionally done, quite high. And the equipment's still there, but I was quite impressed with the job that they're doing. I know it's been a long time coming and a very controversial topic in Leelanau County and the future of Sugarloaf. But we do appreciate the fact that they followed through their professional job and really did clean up the site in a very professional manner. So we'll see what the next phase is for Sugarloaf. Next, please. Next slide, please. Okay, Open Meetings Act, you probably saw my update from a law firm. There's a change effective January 1st. And this is a bit of a surprise because they actually went a little bit opposite of the way most people were predicting. But as of January 1st, commissioners can no longer have the option of zooming in and voting. They can participate, but they cannot vote and they cannot count towards a quorum. So, for example, this morning, Patricia zooming in as of January 1st, she can no longer do that. The only exception is if you're in the military. So that's a change in the law. There's still a slight chance they may modify that. There's a lot of pressure in Lansing this week to make some changes. But when I was at a MAC meeting yesterday, they were not optimistic that was going to happen. So as of January 1st, the Open Meetings Act does not allow members of the public board to vote if they are remote, and nor can they count towards a quorum. So you must have the majority of people physically present, and all the votes have to be taken by people who are physically present. Commissioners could participate in dialogue, but they cannot vote. So that's of January 1st.
The legislature did that?
Yes. Yes. Next slide, please. We had, I thought, a very productive substance abuse coalition meeting Friday here. We had about 30 people participate, some by Zoom, mostly live. Rebecca Tenbuck, our new coordinator, is coming up with some new goals and objectives and a good dialogue. It was great to see members of the tribe once again participating. We had a strong partnership with them, but with COVID, that kind of put things to an end, and a lot of things changed. And so they were once again present, and in the future, we'll hope to alternate between here and tribal offices once again and get their participation. So you'll be hearing more about that in the upcoming months. And part of that is, and I think I've been giving you updates on this, but there is a public settlement now for the opiate lawsuit. If you look at that, it's $26 billion. We did participate. We entered a lawsuit in 2017, as you remember. We submitted all our expenses, including for our task force, the coalition. And I don't want to go public with a number yet, it could change, but based on the agreements and based on the mission that we got, we will get reimbursed for all our dollars that we've spent, plus additional dollars that we'll get. It'll be over an 18-year period, starting probably next year. So it'll be over 18 years that we'll get a check on an annual basis. There's agreement between the states and the local units of government how to allocate those funds. And so we should have a firm number in the next couple of months. I do have a tentative number, but I don't want to state it at this point in case it changes. But for example, all the costs we have allocated in the last 5 years for our substance abuse coalition, we'll get that back. And we probably will have to allocate those funds back to those type of costs, as there are some provisions how money can be spent. It can't just be put back in the general fund budget. But our efforts, I think, were rewarded that we did go through all our budgets the last 5 years. Any costs we could have, we did. And so you'll be hearing more about that. It's not completely official, but all parties have totally agreed to it at this point. And so we'll moving forward. This time we have a guest here, Alan Campbell, who most of you know, has been with us as a reporter and an editor for many years, and he has a special presentation he'd like to do.
Hello, everyone.
I thought you were going to cover our meeting.
Oh, no,
We're not that fortunate.
no, I'm not at that level. So, well, first I want to thank Chet and Will and the commissioners for an opportunity to come before the representatives of Leelanau County. And I represent, I represent the kids fishing. And myself, I'm a co-chair of that committee, which is really a pretty loose knit committee. And what we do is only made possible by the support of Leelanau County businesses, and it is a partnership between government and business that I think works pretty good. And as part of that, I also am open to questions, but we did not have, for the last 2 years, we haven't had it. But Leelanau County and our partners joined in, and we were able to plant that pond with bluegills. And so I guess I'm also representing the hundreds of kids who go there and have an opportunity to catch fish. Because as you know, Leelanau County, well, maybe you know, maybe you don't. If you're not a fisherman, you probably don't. But Leelanau County doesn't have those little ponds, those little places where a kid with a bobber and a cane pole can go out there and actually catch fish. And it's so important for kids to be successful, no matter what size of fish. They don't really care. As I said, we haven't had the event. We had. To be honest, we had some folks among our group of volunteers who wanted to have it and some who didn't want to have it. And we've always been kind of a +1 organization, as in if we're causing controversy, maybe it's time to step back and because we don't want to be a dividing. I mean, it shouldn't be a division. It should be, if it's not making everybody happy for us, it's just not worth doing. But I think what we did do with your help and your support was a +1. As in, we provided those fish, kids were able to go there with their families as at their own times, when it was convenient. That said, I love our event because it is kind of a family gathering. We provide, we cook hot dogs. We have, we give folks worms and fishing poles, and how can you go wrong there? But one of our big sponsors from day one has always been Leelanau County, and in particular your Parks and Recreation. Rick, are you on? You're on the committee too, along with Melinda. I think she invented the Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm not quite sure.
We're the parks.
Oh,
Okay. We're a committee.
Well, we just called it Leelanau County Parks and Recreation. So I guess we should be. So I have a certificate I'd like to provide you guys. I'm not sure what you're going to do with it. You probably get hundreds of certificates maybe, but this one, please know it does come from the heart, as in we truly do appreciate your support. So
It's very nice.
Thank you so much, Alan. It's really nice.
As I said, we are a partnership between government and businesses. By coincidence, Dick's Poorhouse has been one of our partners from, I believe, day one. Since, and I'd be remiss if I didn't send out a kudos to Pete Taylor, who has died, and he was kind of that perfect leader, and that he also knew when to step back and not push people too much, and when to push them a little bit. And so he was pretty good at fundraising, wasn't he?
Yes, sir.
Never missed a beat.
This
Well,
goes
thank
for
you very
Dick's
much.
Poorhouse.
I
So
work with
if
that.
I could have maybe a little applause. For folks. Oh, I'm done. Yeah, if you guys got questions of what we do or our plans, or Be glad to-
I just wanted to add, thank you for that. And, I can't say enough too about our Kids Fish Day. So thank you for recognizing it. And of course, we're really excited for the next official Kids Fish Day event.
yes,
It is very, as you said, you didn't just come. You don't have to have your own equipment. They got the poles, bobbers, the bait. They have somebody to thread the worm on the hook for you and take the fish off. It's really great. But Now we've added the a safer fishing platform. So
Mhm.
that should be just, and I see it heavily used. Because of course, we did stock the ponds, as you said,
Mhm.
but without an event, people are coming just on their own, and I see it heavily, until it got so cold, but.
Sure. Very good. Thank you, folks. Thank you.
And Steve Christian just walked in.
Oh, my gosh. Well,
Thanks, Steve.
where's Steve?
Right there.
Oh,
Well, and I just want to say that all of my grandchildren, except for the one that is 3 months old, have fished there. And I just love it.
do they catch fish?
Summer, right?
Oh, they always do it. One knows how to catch the bass that are in there. Yeah, he catches a little bluegill, then he puts it on there and catches the bass.
Steve, the Conservation District has also been a firm supporter of what we do. So I'd like to provide that on behalf of the committee and on behalf of those hundreds of kids who figured out how to catch a fish some way or another. Thanks so much for your support.
Appreciate it. Thank you. All
Everything.
right, is there anything else? No. All right, and then that would bring us then to the planning, community development updates.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Senior Planner Gail Meyer and I are here today to give you an update on our department. And Laurel has the slides in her office. She's going to run those for us. We included this in your packet, so we're going to kind of briefly go through the pages and hit some of the major points we'd like to stress for you. So on the first page here, we just pointed out the staff services that we provide to the different boards and commissions on behalf of Leelanau County. Next slide, please. So I'll start with the County Planning Commission. They have been in existence since 1968. They were put into, there was an ordinance that was adopted in 1970. And then when the planning and zoning laws changed, there was a new ordinance requirement that was done in 2011. And under that 2011 ordinance, the 11 members that were appointed were then done by interest in the county. So that's why when you look at appointing people to the County Planning Commission, you're looking at agriculture, education, legal, and so forth, is because that was set up by ordinance. And prior to that, we had appointments done where we tried to get one person from each township so that we'd have every township representative. So in 2021, some of the activities that they did included welcoming 3 new members to the board. We completed our annual CIP update for the board and brought it here to you for your acceptance. Hosted a training session, and there was two topics: Solar Energy and Right to Farm Act, and that led into us deciding that we needed another session in 2022 on agriculture and what we can do to help support farmers. So that's in the works, and that's going to be held sometime in April. We also reviewed several zoning ordinance amendments and rezoning requests, along with the proposed zoning ordinance from a township. And then our members participated in monthly meetings of the Housing Action Committee. We have 1 member on Parks and Rec, and then they also attend meetings of their local communities and report back each month. Next slide. Under housing, housing has changed as of last year because there are no more grants from the state for our rehab work, but we are working with Northwest Michigan Community Action Agency through an agreement with you to still provide some of those services. I am going to be reviewing housing a little bit more in depth at your meeting next Monday, the Committee of the Whole. And so this is just kind of a refresher for you. We continued the 2nd year partnership with Housing North, a regional housing organization, and that was done through the Housing Action Committee. We provided input to Housing North on a housing ready staff position that they want to do, which would be a person that would focus on work in Leelanau County. They're hoping to implement that next year. Also worked on density maps for housing opportunities that would include areas mapped out where there are utilities and zoning and beta routes and so forth, to try to determine where could housing developments actually go, where does it make sense to put some new housing. There was a request for ARPA funds presented to the county board from the Housing Action Committee. They participated in the Housing Summit, which was again held virtual this year in Traverse City, and then started work on a 2022 meeting where we're going to have a speaker to talk about housing developments. And then some of the staff responsibilities on housing is that we continue to track the program income, which is the repayment on our housing loans. We prepare annual statements that are due to the state. work with NMCAA on projects for rehab, do weekly receipts of housing payments, prepare loan interest statements and payoff statements, and then handle any discharge of mortgages when loans are paid off and we close them out. Next slide. The Brownfield Authority is a 7-member authority appointed by you with one county commissioner serving on that. And since 2008, we have received over $1.8 million in US EPA grant funds and administered just over 1.3 million of those funds. We didn't use all of the revolving loan fund, but we did use quite a bit of it. We did projects for assessment, community outreach, and cleanup, including 3 of what I'll call the biggest projects in the county: Sugarloaf, the former government center in Leland, and then the GTOS site, Grand Traverse Overall Supply Site in Elmwood. That site is a Superfund site. If you haven't heard of that term before, it basically means it's one of the dirtiest sites that you can have in your community. EPA has a pump and treat system on there for the groundwater. There is a plume that is migrating toward the bay, and they are handling that groundwater and trying to treat that. They expect to be on site for quite a few years yet doing that. And brownfield and plans are in place for that site as well as the former government site in Leland. Next slide. The Brownfield Authority worked with EnviroLogic this past year to develop the new EPA assessment grant to EPA for $250,000. So we'll find out in the spring when those awards are. We were encouraged that last year we only missed it by a couple points. They're very, very competitive. So knowing that we were that close to it, we felt that we should give it another shot. There are 5 brownfield plans that were adopted in Leelanau County. 4 of them are still active. We did terminate one about 2 years ago because the development was not moving forward. The Brownfield Authority continues to collect the TIF, which is the tax increment financing on these plans, and that can be used to repay eligible expenses as well as the administrative costs for the Brownfield Authority. And then we have to do annual reports back to the state each year. And something else we held in 2021 for the first time ever was we did a training session for the treasurers in these communities so that they understand how this is put on the tax rolls. We make sure we're collecting TIF correctly and dispersing it correctly. We did have some things we had to clean up that were done incorrectly. In 2021, we also had our first payment back to the county on the loan that we got when we first started out. So that was good. It took us a while to get started on that, but we will now make annual payments until that loan is paid off. And we were also able to pay back the DTR fund for the cost of demolition of the house that used to sit on Cherry Bend Road on the GTOS site. Next slide. A remonumentation, I wanted to just give you a brief overview and a little bit of history on this. Leelanau County started remonumentation in 1993. And in 2020, the county plan for remonumentation was redone and approved by the board and the state. To date, we have just over 1,000 corners done and 82 need to be completed. We also have 246 corners in the county that are excluded, and those are areas where it's swampy, like around Cedar. It's too hard to get to those sites. The Sleeping Bear area where some of those corners are already done. The islands, those will not be done. Inaccessible corners, and then the corners on the border between Leelanau County and Grand Traverse and Benzie County. Those other counties have already completed those corners. With 82 corners left, I'm estimating that at approximately 14 corners a year, we're going to be in remonumentation for about 6 more years. And then we go into what's called maintenance mode. And maintenance means you then start back where you first started back in 1993 to go out and check those corners, make sure they're still in good shape, see if they need to have any repairs done. And at that time, when we go into maintenance, the grant dollars will be reduced to about half of what we're getting right now. And I've served as the administrator for that program since 2019. Prior to that, Chet served in that role. And then prior to that, it was the Register of Deeds office. I'll turn it over to Gail for the next slide, please.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question before you go on to Gail, Trudy?
Yeah.
With the remonumentation, were we going to go into the lake shores, do something special around the lake shores with the corners, or maybe it wasn't corners? Were we going?
Are you talking about the Sleeping Bear dunes?
No,
National?
all the, perhaps it was their lake shore. There was something with the remonumentation. A few years ago, we heard about us that was going to be necessary to go down, maybe because of the density around the lakes, to do something with the remonumentation around along the shores.
I'll have to check back on that. That's
Okay,
not
hadn't
ringing a
been
bell for
worked
me, but,
yet.
okay, I'll look back on that.
Okay.
And I have one question about the planning commission.
Mhm.
How many townships are now represented in it? Do we know at all?
I don't have that number right now, but I think I could figure it out quickly as Gail's talking.
All right, moving on to the Solid Waste Council. The Solid Waste Council has 14 members who are appointed by you. Those 14 members are also appointed as the Solid Waste Management Planning Committee for the purpose of amending the solid waste management plan. It is proposed to reduce that number from 14 down to 9 starting next year. The Solid Waste Council, along with staff, held 4 household hazardous waste and electronics and shredding collections this year. Something new we did was hold one of those collections on a Monday. So our September collection in Pishaviton was held on a Monday from noon until 6, and it turned out to be our busiest collection of the year with 422 participants. We also had 2 tire recycling collections, and one of them was also something new. It was a mobile event, which was geared more towards people who had large piles of tires on their property. We arranged for the semi-trailer. The property owner paid a small fee for each tire and also had to provide the labor to get the tires out to the waiting semi. So we were able to collect 2,000 tires with that collection from 3 different properties. We also completed work on the recycling grant received from the state for improving the collection of recyclable materials at our recycling sites. Cameras were purchased for 6 of these sites as part of the grant, and 5 of those are currently up and running. We completed site plan work for a proposed site on South Pop Road. This site has not moved forward at this time. The temporary site in Leland opened in 2000 and was approved for an extension, so that will continue to operate into 2022. Next slide. This is a chart showing our recycling volumes by the location. This year, the totals are only good through October. I don't have the November or December numbers yet. But if you look at 2019 versus last year there were more people at home due to COVID. The recycling sites seem to be busier, but the numbers don't really reflect a huge change in the volumes. Glen Arbor was actually down, as well as Elmwood, and Northport and Pishaviton were also a little bit lower. Moving on to the next slide. In the summer of 2021, surveys were conducted at 7 recycling sites as part of this recycling grant. The majority of surveys came from Elmwood, Cedar, Suttons Bay, and Glen Arbor School. 77.9% of the respondents were year-round residents. And something surprisingly, of the 1,035 respondents, 73.9% said they were not interested in curbside recycling. 26.1% were interested, and of that, 82.8% were willing to pay extra. The majority said they were willing to pay $5 to $10 extra a month for that service. The majority of respondents said they recycled once a week. And the materials that were most recycled: cardboard, glass, mixed paper, followed by plastics and metals. Moving on to the next slide. These show our total pounds of hazardous waste collected in the last 10 years. In 2016, we've collected the most. Last year, 136,698 pounds. This year, we kind of dropped down a little bit. Latex paint continues to be the largest part of that number. Moving on to the next, this show the electronics that we've collected. 2017, 94,717 pounds. In 2020, we actually dropped down a little bit to 72,221. And this year we kind of jumped back up again. But we did start taking some new things, refrigerant items, like window air conditioners, dehumidifiers, Christmas lights. So that kind of contributed to that number coming back up. Next slide. It shows the shredding that we've collected in the last 2 years. Kind of dropped down a little bit this year. Elmwood was down significantly. I think we're going to blame that on the fact that it rained the entire day.
Yeah.
And our tent blew away. So, next slide. This shows a total number of tires that we've collected over the last 3 years, 2019.
Excuse me, Gail, I'm going to request for you to speak up. People on YouTube have a tough time hearing you.
Okay. This slide shows the number of tires that we've collected over the last 3 years. 2019, we were able to collect 3,773 tires. In 2020, we were only able to hold one collection, so we didn't get quite as many tires. This year, we had 2 collections, one being that mobile event, so we were back up at 3,496 tires.
Next slide. Oh, got it. And then the final slide for you here today is just a list of some other things that we work on in our office. We do some mapping. We've taken care of the county address ordinance. We've administered that since 1989, which covers the addresses as well as road names for the county. And we also have to do verifications for 911 purposes, utilities, permits, and voter registration. So that takes up a good amount of time in the office. Gail and I are also members of the damage assessment team for emergency operations and work on the website. And then on behalf of our department, we apply for grants for the county. We do presentations throughout the county and the region, as well as some national ones as well. We've got a little information here on some of the revenue that is generated. It's not a lot through our office, but we do generate revenue from different application fees and so forth. And then coming up next year, some of the things that we'll focus on is updating that CIP plan again, completing work under the remonumentation grant, as well as providing support to all of our boards and commissions, and look for some additional recycling sites, perhaps start mattress recycling if we get the funds from the tribe, and then anything else that's assigned to our office. So that's an update for you on behalf of our department. And if you have any questions for us or anything else you want to check on, by the way, Commissioner Bunnick, just a quick look at the Planning Commission. I know we have 7 townships for sure covered. We have some duplicates in a couple of those.
Not a question, but a thank you. You've been so responsive to Northport officials and Leelanau Township officials and developers from Northport. Anytime they have a question about a potential development, she's there. Just last week, she met with the village and township folks on possibilities for a couple of developments. And always so responsive and always so appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I would just say that the Leland one is in 2020, not 2000. When you read it on that page 7, you said Leland started in 2000.
Oh,
So it was 2020.
you're right. Typo.
That's all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for all of his work. It's so important.
You're welcome.
All right, and that will bring us to our action items. And the first one is the Blue Cross Blue Shield contract renewal. And Mr. Walter here. It's always a pleasure to see you.
This time it's a pleasure to be here. A real pleasure.
Nicer weather.
Well, yeah.
Did you Zoom last year?
I believe so.
Really?
Yeah, I do. That's good.
I don't know if you notice, I'm a little more casual than I've ever been before. This was my year to experience the medical community, which I've never really done. Now I've done it all. Supposed to be dead. That was interesting. Broke my ankle, had surgery, had tests I've never even knew existed. Ended up throwing blood clots to the point that they said this is all impossible. So what's impossible here, it's all because of me. Since I'm impossible. But the interesting thing was in the employee meetings, we changed my presentation a little bit because before I was going based on what I heard from my other clients. No personal experience really. Now that I've been through this thing and understand some of the things that we've asked your employees to do, but now I've experienced this, so we're giving them better tools to deal with some of this stuff. I found out that doctors are very good at doing what they do, but communicating and that kind of thing, no. So we're giving them some tools to get their attention. That's what you have to do. Interesting year because of the pandemic. Most of the things that we did this year was from the parking lot. They won't let you in. One thing I can say is thank God for nurses. They really are the backbone of this whole thing, and one of them saved my life. I went in on Saturday to my regular doctor and sat there in front of him, basically having a heart attack. And he said, "Oh, you've been in a chair for 3 weeks. You've been, the splint is hitting the back of your knee. Go home. We'll keep checking you for pneumonia." All right. So I went home Monday. I went to the surgeon. Same story. Go home. It's this, it's that. But a nurse called me an hour later and said, "Get back here right now." And I ended up in the hospital. I ended up in ER. I ended up having tests I never even heard of. Ended up in cardiac IC for a week. And through that, the experience for your employees this year in our employee meeting was a little different. Because now I can tell them, here's what you're going to run into. Here's really what you need to do to get going. Interesting year for you guys in that you did it again. This was a very heavy year at my office for your employees calling, which was wonderful. They know the language. They know how to phrase a question to get an answer they can use. Okay. So we helped several people through some situations that came up in their life. And in reality, if you look on 2021 prescription costs, they've gone up a little bit. But I am convinced that if we hadn't gotten some of those phone calls and talked people through some things we could do, that number would have been significantly higher. There are some very expensive drugs out there right now. And the questions that were asked kind of kept them away from some of them. But because we have our $20,000 stop loss, including RX, we didn't get hurt like we could have. So our projected cost for the year was just over $2 million. Our actual cost was 1.795. So we were under $239,000. It's kind of a cheat because I used Blue Cross's numbers right now. Nobody knows what's going on in any part of our world, really. Are we looking at $5 gas? Groceries have gone up. Well, medical costs have gone up also, but we're still beating the curve. And I think it's mainly because of that $20,000 stop loss. One of your sister counties went to 35,000 and got hurt rather badly. They had a bad year, and that extra $15,000 they had to cover was not a good situation. So I'm still arguing with Blue Cross several times a year when we get at our meetings. And when our renewal showed up and it was still at 20,000, it was like, this is well worth the fight. Our projected cost for next year is coming down from what they said before, down to $2,015,000, which is a small step down. But once again, I used their number. And in their number, they build in some things that I don't think are true. So I think we're in really good shape for next year too. Our Our stop loss fee is going up slightly, 1.1%. That is unheard of. Everybody else is ranging in the 16% range. But what happened was you guys hit the stop loss pool pretty good the last couple of years. But this year, you did not have a lot of large claims. So your stop loss cost was actually a net positive to them. And so they backed off on hitting you with what everybody else got hit with. In reality, it's just a makeup for the last 2 years, what you took out of the pool. So our large claim payments were only 542,000, which on a group of this size is pretty good.
So basically, we're only looking at a projected cost of 20,000 more than last.
Yes, 20,000 less.
20,000
Less.
less. Oh, correct. You have I reversed my numbers?
Yeah.
20,000 less. Okay. And then does that include administrative?
That includes everything.
Everything?
Yeah. Yep. Me, Blue Cross, anything involved. We're paying some fees right now to a couple of firms that Blue Cross has hired that are helping us with these drug problems. We are participating in a program that is getting discounts, the coupons. It used to be your employee had to go get a coupon to get Humira for $40 a month, and pharmaceutical and manufacturers discounts were available, which we weren't getting the advantage of much. Now we are in an actual program that is looking for those for us. So the administrative fee was $78.57. They're raising it just under 3%. That fee totaled $88,917. However, a couple of years ago, if you remember, you voted to pay an additional fee. They changed the way you paid your administrative fee, but you get 100% of the Blue Cross discounts now. That number was a little over $1 million. So when we look at this group, the actual billing was over $3 million. It just didn't land on you guys. Okay. So all in all, this thing is working better than Blue Cross says is possible. They argue with me all the time. That can't be true. Guys, you give me the numbers. I don't create these things. You send me the reports. I do this. So as long as we can keep riding this train, you know, after my little situation of realizing I'm not supposed to be here, it makes you sit down and go through the list of things you really want to do. And I found out that I love my job. I love helping your employees. I love helping my other clients. So this is one of the things that ended up on my list that I will do. I don't think anybody ever expected rock climbing and sea-doos out to Wisconsin and some of those things to end up on my list, but they did, because why not? When we look at the other costs, the prescription costs, dental costs, and vision costs, they climbed a little bit, but they are well below the what's going on out there. So what that tells me, and having the employee meetings, is that they are very judicious about how they use your dollars. Everybody's in this thing together. And that is a remarkable feat, because as Chet can tell you, this is the most contentious thing in most contract negotiations. Not here.
Not here.
So
Lou, I'm just wondering now, you're reducing it by 20,000 here, the projected cost, but yet consistently everything has gone up.
Yep.
And so how do we get to a lower projected cost when actually everything has gone?
Because we were under 230 some thousand dollars this year.
That's what I thought, but I just said,
Yep.
it's not very logical. But
Yep.
it's
Yep.
true.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting when you sit in my chair in a lot of groups. Most groups costs are based on more theory than they are fact. Okay? It's what we think is going to happen, and we're going to charge you for that. In this case, because you guys' reality has been proven over and over and over again to be the case, they are finally beginning to accept the fact that you are unique. You are not getting a guess as much as a reality check. So, like I say, this is unique to my business and I like doing it. You have proven something that has been a falsehood in my business my entire life, and I've done this for 40 years. They say you cannot educate these people to the point that they will help you hold down health costs. We know for a fact that is not true. So, projected versus actual. All of this chart doesn't mean really anything other than the actual cost numbers. And if you look at 2015 to 2021, we're up a couple of $100,000. The reality is, though, that is not from claims and payments for services. Almost all of our increases come from increased participation. You know, we've gone from 79 people, I think we're to 95. Yeah. So the reality is our cost per contract is not changing, which is, once again, unheard of. If we go and look at healthcare costs year to date, the reason we do this is to give you an idea of how your plan kind of self-corrects itself. If Michelle, Chet wasn't here, Melinda was, Will was, remember the first year we did this, we lost a judge in the spring. We got this massive bill. And I'll never forget the next day, Michelle was on the phone. What are we gonna do now? This is gonna kill this thing. And I said, write the check for 20,000 and go home. We came in under that year, even with that massive bill we ended up with. So as you look at this thing, you can see the red is when we were under what we projected for them. The black is when we went over what we projected for you guys. And that's just dividing the projected by 12 to come up with that number. But it shows that you are amazingly consistent in how you're using your money. The pooled rates versus the actual rates, you know, this would never happen because you wouldn't allow it. You would change your plan. You would add additional money to your employees. You'd be taking it out of their check. But to give you an idea, if we had been doing pooled rates, which are premium instead of self-funded rates, you would be at well over $4 million in costs for this plan. And so once again, it just shows that if you are willing to put some time and money into other things, education, things like that, it can be a successful in your pocket to you guys. Okay. Now that leads us to, we show out your invoice costs, we show out RX, we show a bunch of numbers. Basically, this is how we track through the year every month as the bills come in, so that if we see something wildly out of place, we can give you guys a call and say, hey, heads up, for the next couple of months, we got to watch what's going on. In that year, that first year we lost the judge, we had that massive bill come in and everything. But over the next couple of months, because there was a couple other claims at that point in time, it went down below what we projected. And at the end of the year, it had zeroed out. And that's how these things work correctly. Okay. The last page is, because I work for somebody who pays costs I don't see, phones, my helper, he wanted us to ask for a raise. We didn't last year, I don't think.
No, we did not.
Yeah, so And that was because we had received some additional help from you guys. But this year, we are asking for a raise. It's $150. It'll put us just over $4,000 a month, which is significantly below what we would be making if we had been charging you a commission. The reason that happened is because when we started this, we took a 50% pay cut based on what we should have made. And the anticipation was you would be a normal group. Your premium would go up a little every year, right? So we would get a small raise every year from that raise. Well, when we go back and look at your history, there's been no increase in cost. So we have to create it by asking for it. We would be somewhere in the 60+ range if we, based on our real numbers, we'd be in the 120 plus range if we were doing the 4 million thing. So in the end, because this works well for everybody, you are not a huge burden on my office. Your people are smart enough to only call when it's a significant problem or question. You don't get nickel and dime for that kind of stuff. So this is what we're asking for based on, I guess, cost of paper. I don't know. Any questions?
Sounds good. Anybody else?
We need a motion on the.
Yes, we do.
I move to recommend to the County Board of Commissioners to approve an increase of $150 to $4,050 for the monthly fee for CNM insurance for the administration of the county's Blue Cross Blue Shield healthcare plan.
Second.
My question was back in some of what we have in our packet, it's not in here. And it looks like, is this some list of, are these medicines, drugs that you're listing? Are those some that we use?
Oh, they have the full packet that I brought
Yes.
to you guys?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, those are your top 50 drugs. I don't know if I gave you all 50, but the top
that our
25
employees
drugs.
are using?
Yeah, yeah. So that is actual dispensed pharmaceuticals.
Okay. And then you had a pie chart, we couldn't quite read how our discounts have benefited during the experience period.
It looks like it's, I think it's, is it this one? Linda?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We gave them the full packet.
Okay.
So
Yeah, what that shows is,
go ahead.
I think that's the one that shows where Blue Cross applied. Get this right.
Like,
What a discount.
Yeah,
I just can't read the numbers.
Yeah, it's hard to read.
okay, what this thing shows is it's a color thing, and we should have gotten you a color one to use for this. But what this shows is that where those discounts went to, how much went to administrative costs, how much went to pharmaceutical costs, how much went to medical costs. That's what that thing was designed to show, and that's where the 1.some million come from.
I just don't. Yeah, well, thank you for all you do, and thank you to all our employees for what they do.
Oh, yeah.
This is a fantastic benefit to our employees, and after last year, I wish we were on insurance for what I paid out of pocket is unbelievable, so thank you for that.
Any other questions or statements? Okay, this is for the raise of $150. We understand that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes 6-0. Do we need to do something for the renewal of the
Yes.
contract?
Yeah, just need to make a motion to renew the contract as presented.
So moved.
Support. All right. So Commissioner Longer moves that we renew the contract, supported by Commissioner Albetter. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Yes.
I just wanted to thank Lou. We did our employee meetings last year that we do every year, and Lou came out and we got some really good feedback. One of the employees had suggested we take them again this year. So we take the second day of Lou. We also have, Lou covers a lot of the health insurance, and working with him also is Greg Crawford, who's our Aflac person. So they get a lot of good information to the employees. We had all of our vendors here like we always do, but we had some really good positive feedback. We had a few areas that we needed Lou to really touch on, and I think he did. I heard especially about vision and dental coverage. And
In network, out of network.
it took a few years, but I do think everyone here buys in to the understanding that if we can control our costs, it saves on anyone contributing to premiums. Plus, we also offset that by we do offer the payout to not take our insurance, which is higher than the national average, but there is a method to that, because if we can incentivize people to take their spouse's insurance, it's a win-win for them financially and a win-win for us by not having another 100 people on our insurance. So we just want to thank Lou and Greg. I don't want to miss Greg.
No, Greg has done a great job, and we've done it often enough now that when I miss something, he gets it. When he misses something, I get it. So your employees are getting a pretty well-rounded now, what's going on and what they need to look for.
I just wanted to add that.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Merry Christmas.
It is that time, isn't it? Merry Christmas to you all.
All right, that brings us then to the sheriff's office and the take-home vehicle request for the jail lieutenant.
Morning, commissioners.
Morning, sir.
Morning. Okay, take-home car request. And I'm going to grab one more thing here. I have submitted a take-home car request for Lieutenant Todd Roush, our jail administrator. There are 83 counties in Michigan. There are 85 take-home cars. One count or 4 counties, including Grand Traverse to the south of us, issue 2 take-home cars to jail staff. Lieutenant Roush is constantly on call. With the advent of COVID, with the advent of, if you will, kind of a mixed up last couple of years with training and who we can see and what we can do and call outs and people being sick in the jail, employees being sick and sent home for 10 to 14 days, we've had a lot of stress on him. One thing I wanted to do right off the bat when COVID came, this is back to the 23rd of March, 2020. I designated Todd Roush as the, if you will, the sanitation expert for our department. He has in his office 5-gallon jugs of hand sanitizer cleaner. He has all the stuff to fill the COVID decontamination machines. We've got a decontaminating machine up here running right now. He's fogged this area out before with the big yellow box he's brought in. It fogs the room out. When we get inmates, such as we had a couple of weeks ago from Grand Traverse County who did have COVID, we had to fumigate everything, as well as the patrol cars when we pick up and arrest somebody. Last night, we had a COVID ambulance call for Cedar and Glen Lake, and it's just a constant thing. So we designated one person, that was Todd Roush, to take care of all the supply of gloves, materials, to come in the middle of the night and replace people who are becoming sick or to make administrative decisions. So the need for a take-home car from that perspective, I think, is well-founded. When we do our firearms tactical instruction, I'm the head of the firearms training. Andy Bosher is the head of the roadside, and Todd Roush is the head of the corrections side. That said, we team up, we haul materials back and forth to the range. We don't have bumper hitches on our personal vehicles, so Todd Roush uses his personal truck to haul our range equipment back and forth to the range and so forth. He's always on call. He's always willing to come in. He never fights me on that. He is a salaried employee. He is an administrative employee. He's not hourly. So his wage does not cover any of the call outs that he does. It's all part of his being salaried. So I feel that at the time when that car was taken from him, that personal vehicle, he had used it twice to drop his kids off on the way to work, drop them off at school, which is inappropriate, and it's been dealt with. And in that case, he was not formally disciplined. I like to use verbal counseling first when I deal with people and they do something wrong. That was clearly wrong. He shouldn't have dropped his kids off at the school. However, that's corrected. And I told him if it ever happens again, he wouldn't have the privilege of the car. We have a 5x5 clear understanding of that. So the policy for the county says that the county administrator and the sheriff will make a determination on this. And in this particular case, I feel it's important that he does have a take-home car. This would cost approximately $1,400 a year based on gas that we purchase at the road commission being $2.70 a gallon. It would cost about $1,400 a year, of which we can find within that budget. He has turned in since 2013 an average of $29,000 a year in overage. In other words, we are making more money on bringing inmates in here, especially from Grand Traverse County and some from the tribe. We're making more money than his operational costs have been. So since 2013, I have it all printed out for you if you'd like a copy. We have brought in $378,290 to the county from jail operations. You're experiencing 0 lawsuits, 0 suicides, a very, very successful jail administrator and operation, and kudos and credit to all those employees. But with that, 2013, 21,950, 14, 46, then we went 85,000, 33,000, 46,000, 39,000, 72,000, 22,000, and last year, 9,000. Last year, the revenue was down because of COVID. Very few people are being sentenced to jail, and those that are, in some cases, we don't accept. When Grand Traverse sent us 7 inmates a few weeks ago, one of them, after having been tested, or at least said they were tested, tested positive for COVID, gave it to one of our inmates and gave it to one of our jail staff, which every time our jail staff is off, it's a 14-day issue. Basically, it's 2 business weeks. So we have had employees out during the year. And so in order to keep that low and not to exacerbate that problem, we sent all those inmates back to Grand Traverse County, missed that inmate income. Once COVID is over, I imagine we're going to be back up into the range of about 29,000 a year extra. Now, this is on and beyond his regular budget. So what I'm recommending is that that be the decision of the sheriff, and that be the decision of the sheriff based on the county administrator and sheriff agreeing that that is our operational need and so forth. And that's kind of the long and short of it. I have a bunch of very specific things I can explain, but it would be somewhat redundant. I hope you would trust my judgment as your sheriff and a person who's conservative by nature, that I do not think this is a waste of money or a waste of an opportunity. That car is in our lot, and for him to take that back and forth to commute home and be available, I think is a valuable asset for our sheriff's office. And if you would like to see, I made a copy for everybody. Would you like to have a copy of the overage that we bring in every year in the jail?
I wonder if the 1,300 to 1,500. Oh, that's annual. You know what, I read that it's monthly.
Oh, no.
What's he doing?
No, that'd be a year. I mean, I have it broken down to how many miles it is to his house back and forth. It's the fact that he is on call. He is, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm one of the luckiest sheriffs in the state of the 83 to have this staff I have, this undersheriff, Jim Kiesel, Todd Roush in administrative capacities, because we just are not having the problems that other sheriff's offices are having. And I directly attribute that to their good work and their performance. So I don't look at something costs the county another $1,400, especially in the light of we're not going to have to increase that budget for that. I don't look at it as a problem. I look at more as an administrative decision. So why don't I give a copy of this to all of you, just in case you have a question. Someday Grand Traverse County may build a jail, but it's a long ways off, in my opinion. In the meantime, we have a great relationship. We're able to work with them, which helps them and it helps us. Helps us financially. It gets the burden of having to build and maintain and operate a jail down there, where without COVID, they're constantly pushing over their number of employees, or excuse me, a number of inmates. And when they do that, it jeopardizes a lot of safety and health and welfare for their deputies as well as for their inmates.
It's down significantly in 2021 because of the.
Because of COVID. Mhm. It's a 9,000 year, and I think some years was say maybe 80,000, some years over.
Yeah.
But we have not, have we decided, or deciding yet to go to 7 beds?
That's in the contractor today.
We're not
That's coming
deciding.
up on the agenda.
This is on our agenda today.
I support it.
Well, I have no motion here, so then we'll move on to the next item. Go ahead.
Turn this over to take it away from the board here. And this should be between the administrator and the sheriff.
Well, the challenge of that is the board did make a motion not to authorize a car. So that's why it's back to the
It
board.
has to come back to us. It's on page 33 is the motion.
Okay.
Here, Barclay.
So that's why it's back to the agenda. The board in 2015 reviewed the car policy. And at that time, made a decision not to allow take-home cars. And part of it was a IRS guideline. You have to claim it as income for the emergency manager, for the inspector, the building official, and the jail administrator. They had cars that were taken home. It was decided not to allow them to take them home. They have cars available to them in the work shift, but not to allow them to take them home. The only person that was allowed to take a vehicle home was Jerry Coleman as a maintenance director. So that was action the board took, so that's why it's back on the board.
All right, so then we move on to the request to fill the vacancy in corrections.
So we have an employee, Cam Bennett, who's leaving us for the state police. He will be leaving February 4th. And he's given us the courtesy of letting us know well ahead of time that he's going to be leaving. So we're looking to start interviewing for, and we're in the process of and trying to replace his position so we can get that person up, running and training. The corrections staff has been extremely stressed. Sometimes they're forced to 18-hour shifts. They're on 12s. But with the advent of COVID, with people off and the policies regarding time off, it's pretty stressful. That's a long time to sit down there. I know many of you went down to corrections and saw what they're dealing with and putting up with. And it's a long, hard day for them. And to extend them from 12 to 18 is tough. And in this particular light, we would like to get this new employee up, running and in as soon as possible. We have a phenomenal, I guess, list of candidates. And we're one of the lucky counties right now because of that. It's our geographic location up here. It's the way the administration runs with Lieutenant Roush and so forth. But most corrections offices right now around the state are advertising. They're trying to grab people off the street. They're struggling. Some of them, they've actually put road deputies working inside the jail down in Benzie County. It borders us. It's in a real state of disrepair because it's a stressful job. It's an underpaid job. And it's a situation where it's created a lot of problems. So by getting this person in as soon as possible would help our operations immensely and back them off their 18s a little bit.
Commissioner Wilson.
Yes, I move to recommend that the County Board of Commissioners allow the Sheriff's Office to hire a new corrections deputy no earlier than December 27th, 2021 to fill the vacancy being created on February 5.
Support.
Quick question. If you have an employee now and you're stressed and that employee's leaving and we're going to replace that employee, how is this going to help? It sounds like you're maybe short.
We're really short right now, and because they can't function full, they're in what's called FTO capacity, so field training officers. So when they're in their training, they really don't know how to function, operate. You know, we're the fiduciary for those inmates.
So we have some people in training right now that aren't.
We have one in training right now. We heard from Indiana Department of Corrections. He was at the Max facility. He came up here, he's phenomenal, but again, we're short because he's in training and it takes another person to basically parallel him and train him.
So
So
when will he be FT? whatever, full-time or?
I would say based on his performance, he might be able to get out of the FTO training a little quicker. I would say by about the time Cam would be leaving, he'd be up and running, all trained and ready to go. So in the meantime, we'd start training another person in the interim. So we do have the opportunity to sort of get them off FTO training because of his background experience working at a maximum corrections facility. He just saw horrible things. Yeah. So it really helps us because we don't have to go over the basic administrative things.
Any other?
I would just like to add that it sounds like while Leelanau County is a wonderful place to work, that this is a really great move for deputy. So congratulations.
Yeah, you hate to lose people like that, sort of like the Tigers losing Hell Line or Justin Verlander. You get good people are proven, they're gone, you know, you're hollowed out basically, and you have to go. We did find a great replacement, the last one who left, but again, we've got this list going now, and we think we have some real good candidates on there to choose from, so we'll hopefully grab one and get them in.
Any other questions? All right, so this is to hire the new corrections officer, starting December 21st, 7th, and fill the vacancy being created. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. All right, and that would bring us then to the request to approve additional award of water funds.
So basically, you're talking about a secondary road position, SRP, or a 416 grant. A grant comes from the state police every year. It's from the Highway Traffic Administration to basically fund a deputy position. Over the years, the grant goes up and down. And there's been a lot of pressure by sheriffs on the legislature in the last year because that fund has been dwindling. And as it turns out, they've actually raised it this year. So this is good news. We just found out approximately 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, that they're actually increasing their portion of the pay. So it costs Leelanau County less. So if you want the exact numbers, I think and Sheriff Kiesel has that with them right now. Exact number.
It's gonna go up $7,130. When we apply for the grant, obviously we do the applications in the summer. State fiscal year runs through the end of September. They're also doing budgets then. They make the awards, they give you a set amount. Almost every year they give us additional monies, but it's not until they figure all the bills come October, the governor passes the budget, that they know exactly what's going to be there. So this additional, I think this is actually the 3rd year in a row we've been back because they've given us additional monies. It always tends to work out. It's just the way their state budgeting works. So.
Mr. Water.
I move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the Sheriff's Office submission of a contract adjustment request to the Michigan Office of Highway Safety and Planning to receive an additional $7,130 for the fiscal year 2022 secondary road patrol grant.
Questions or statements? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion passes 6-0. Congratulations on that. And that brings us to the prisoner housing agreement.
Well, basically,
Mr. Potowski's on Zoom. Well, he was.
He was.
Mr.
Well, if you're there and
Potowski is,
listening.
I believe he's.
I am here.
How you doing? So we were approached a couple of years ago and then again earlier this year by the Grand Traverse Span to review our existing, if you will, inmate housing agreement between the Grand Traverse Span and Leelanau County. Because this involves county administrators, the sheriff, the band itself, we had gone through different stages of how to go about this, whether we charge a daily fee as we do in structure with Grand Traverse County, or whether we have a standing agreement. A long-term agreement, which we've had over the years, was for 10 inmate beds for tribal housing. In reality, they're not using all 10. And we were approached, and when I talked to Mr. Potowski about it, he said, well, we don't have many people in. We looked at it, talked to the jail administrator, and basically we're charging them for 10 hamburgers and they're eating 7. So we're looking at this. I talked with Chet Janik at great length on this. We had several meetings with Attorney Potowski and came up with the idea. They proposed reducing the number from 10 to 7 inmate beds per day year round. So that's something we feel is reasonable. You shouldn't obviously charge somebody for something you're not doing. And the band is a great partner for us. We've had great relationship over the years, to the point where I've even commissioned all their officers as our Leelanau County deputies. So that said, I think it's reasonable request on their part. I think it's something that we can handle on our end. That will create less income. Instead of 127,000 projected income, it takes it down to around 89. That's based on the, if you will, inmate housing. However, after COVID, that's going to go back up because we'll be doing more with Grand Traverse. We can, and we've actually approached this before, back in 2014 and again in 16. We talked about the possibility of reaching out to other counties and housing for them. The general thought was, why don't we stick here close with neighboring counties, do something that's local rather than be regional. So in that light, I do feel that we are in a good position to reduce it from 10 to 7, but the board should be aware that, again, that's going to affect our bottom line income at the end. So until we get out of COVID, until we start having that extra revenue and budget every year, it's probably going to be in the neighborhood of about a $38,000 difference in what we take in from inmate as to compared to the budget as it's established.
Mr. Petoskey, did you have a question?
No, I did not. Our judge has indicated that he's doing a lot more sentencing people with those bracelets where they monitor them by a bracelet. The only modification in this document also clarified some costs, and basically the tribe, regardless of the jurisdiction of who is being arrested, if it's occurring inside the casino, we are taking responsibility for that. That has been a ongoing question that was resolved incident to these negotiations. So that's, but even the principle that we had used in the past was that payment followed jurisdiction, whether it was the state or the tribe. And here there was a arrest by a tribal officer who was acting as a state deputized officer of a non-Indian within the casino, that we would pay for those costs. That's the significant change of clarification in the document.
I move to recommend that the County Board of Commissioners approve the amended inmate boarding contract with Grand Traverse Band, pending final approval by corporate counsel, and authorize the board chair to sign the same.
Or
And just FYI, this contract was written and reviewed by our corporate counsel, so that has taken place.
Shall I amend it?
No, I mean, that's fine. That's just so you know that has happened.
Any other questions or statements? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you.
thank you. One,
I'm glad we made this correction.
it's only fair, it's the right thing to do. The band is a good partner for us. So did we cover what we need to cover?
Oh, there's one more request for
Yes,
Okay,
Sergeant Hall classes.
right, the educational request for Sergeant Jennifer Hall.
reimbursement for
Yeah.
college classes.
Yeah, and I can speak, she has been taking classes for 3 years now.
Yeah, close to 3 years.
Yeah.
She only, with time and everything, she only takes a class or two every semester, so it's been a longer process than normal.
So this is one nice perks we do out for our employees, and I'm glad she's taking advantage of it. And actually, I'm trying to get more people to take advantage of this. It's a unique opportunity, and it shows that we support our employees. Strong support this.
Commissioner Wesson.
I move to recommend that the County Board of Commissioners approve 50% tuition reimbursement for Jennifer Hall for classes attended during the spring, summer, and fall semesters at Northwestern Michigan College and/or Ferris State University pursuant to Article number 30 of the FOPLC Correction Command CBA funds to come from 351.960.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you for that.
So for my personal edification on item 1 regarding the take-home car for administrator position for the jail staff, Lieutenant Todd Roush. Can you give me clarity as to where we're at with that?
The motion from 2015 stands that he's not allowed to take home car.
Nothing
So
has
since
changed.
there was no motion made to support it.
Okay, well, thanks for listening to me. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. All right.
But at the same time, it was eliminated take-home cars for the emergency manager and eliminated
The building official.
building official and
Yeah, they have access to cars during the workday.
any other.
Question I have is, and it does happen. You got Lieutenant Wright, say someday he doesn't want to work the road. You just come over.
That could be the assignment of cars is a board decision.
Does happen in quite a few departments where there's lateral. Lieutenant is a lieutenant.
The only thing is vehicles are not part of the labor contract and it's up to the board to make that decision. We did get a
No, I
lot.
understand. We can change it anytime
Yeah.
if somebody wants to put it on the agenda.
So I guess for the future, would I be allowed to create another EDS and bring this topic up again? Because I feel very strongly that I may have failed in my presentation as to the necessity for that take-home car for the jail lieutenant. And the fact that COVID has changed a lot of things and the call outs and having to get up in the middle of the night and go, and when there's an assault or escape, anything that happens, that's not like a building official or any other type of a car that's used for day, you know, when you're here working, you run around and you do permits and stuff. This is a 24/7 salaried employee who is at the beck and call of the sheriff, if you will, and he's never said no to anything. You're just, so what I'm asking you is, would it be appropriate to reapproach this? Maybe I would explain my end better at another date.
Well, at any time, any department head or official can have an
Okay.
item on the agenda. So
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for your time today. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. All right, and that would bring us to building safety.
Yeah, that's the same as with Jennifer Hall, Molly Steck, started last fall taking class. First time in 20 years that she went back to school and had a very positive experience and wants to continue with her educational career.
Sure.
I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the 50% tuition reimbursement for Molly Stack for classes attended during the spring, summer, and fall semesters at Northwestern Michigan College as outlined in the Teamsters bargaining agreement. Funds to come from education and in 960.000. Support.
Any questions or statements? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. All right, it's 10:30, so I would say that we just take a 5-minute break here, and then we'll move on to equalization.
Michelle,
What?
please mute.
I'll press that button, Michelle.
No, the other one. No, no, the long, no, the long one. There you go. Big red button at the bottom. Perfect.
We don't want people.
There's too many controllers up here.
Too many voices coming. You came at a perfect time.
Switched.
That's true.
Yeah. If I do have.
Well,
Blended the cinnamon raw honey.
Yes, I do note on my hand. Honey. I wrote it down to buy some. I'm so excited.
Does she always call you honey?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they just ordered it in it's cinnamon raw honey. in a tub.
So I mean,
I put it in my hat.
Oh, that sounds good.
approval.
Yeah, they're getting ready.
Yeah. All right, I'd like to call it back to order. We're here at,
Do I have to get this or are we good?
It's green there, so I think we're good.
so we're at equalization, approval of the revised 4402. Go ahead.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I don't have a 40-minute report for you today. But every October, the Equalization Department presents the apportionment report for your approval. Occasionally, we present a revised report in November if there are any millage requests on the ballot that get approved. This November, there was just one millage request on the ballot that was to expand funding for Leland Township, but that millage request was not approved by voters. So after the election was finished and there were no more millage updates to be made, we began putting together a millage rate sheet that we distribute to the public. And this is something that we create every year. It's basically a sheet that catalogs all of the current levies so that if taxpayers want to calculate their winter tax bills before they actually receive their bill from their treasurer, they can do that. So in the process of creating that sheet, we realized that in the apportionment report that there was an error in the calculation for the PRE millage for Northport Public School District. And that error only existed really in two places. It existed on the report and then it existed in the state of Michigan's equalization e-file site. So no taxpayers were impacted by the mistake, and we corrected the report and then corrected the e-file site. But that said, it's still important for us to ensure that the apportionment report that's been approved represents the correct, current and correct numbers. So what I'm asking for today is that you just approve the revised apportionment report, and that should have been included in your packet, I think.
Commissioner Levitt.
Say all good? I recommend that the County Board of Commissioners approve the revised county apportionment report L 4402 as presented.
Support.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Kudos to Andrew for the way he presented that. It's, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so then that brings
38
us.
minutes left.
Good job. The planning and community development appointment of a fiscal year 2022 fair housing coordinator.
Mrs. Gall's not here, but I can briefly talk about it, and it's in your board packet that by law, you need to appoint a fair housing coordinator. I have served in that capacity for many years. Unfortunately, we have not had issues with that, but by the state mandate, it needs to be reappointed by the board. That's your suggested motion that ensure to appoint the county administrator as a fair housing coordinator.
Commissioner Wesson.
I move to recommend appointment of the county administrator as fair housing coordinator for Leelanau County through December 31, 2022.
Support.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0.
Mr. Chair, I was really going to do that by name, Chet Janik, and I was going to change the date from 2022 to 2023, but I didn't.
Mr. Chairman, the motion has passed. Can we move on?
Jeez, good job. All right, so then that brings us then to information technology. We have Ron here.
This is a request to renew our maintenance contract with DLT Software. That's what we use to back up all of our servers, both on-site and to the cloud. It's an annual agreement. We've been using their software for quite a few years now. It's done a good job.
I recommend that the County Board of Commissioners approve renewing the maintenance agreement with DLT Solutions for rapid recovery backup software in the amount of $2,097.11 with funds to come from data processing fund number 636.
Or
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you for that. Thanks, Ron. And that brings us to the clerk and the purchase of MERS service credit for Brian Dion.
May I just present from over
Yes,
here?
please.
So this list was similar to what I brought you last week. Deputy Dion would like to purchase 2 more years. He's made a prior service credit, so this will probably be, I believe this maxes him on what he can purchase. And he would be paying the full amount, which would be approximately $39,560. And he has requested that I do bring this forward to you for approval.
Commissioner Wessel. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Watt.
Oh, certainly. I would recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve by resolution for Brian M. Dion to purchase 2 years of generic service credit from MERS as described in the application for additional service credit purchase at the approximate cost of $39,560 to be paid for by said employee.
Or
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. And that brings us to the dot drops job description. We have that on a separate sheet here as well.
Yeah, it was passed out. You have a job descriptions from the clerk's office for the new position that you
I didn't
approved.
know, and it was passed out.
I move to recommend the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve the job description for the administrative deputy clerk as presented.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you for that. And that brings us then to the Drain Commission. I would say at the bottom of this, it's actually 275-801-000.
Correct.
Yes. It's not 2725, 275. Just so we know. Go ahead.
Good morning, Drain Commissioner Steve Christensen. We're here to request a renewal of the contract with GEI and Brian Sensi for this coming year.
I move to recommend that the Board of Commissioners waive its policy on bid requirements and approve the as-needed consulting and engineering services agreement for general drain consulting between the County of Leelanau, the Leelanau County Drain Commissioner, and GEI Consultants of Michigan as presented. Funds to come from account number ending in .801.000.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Brian Sensi.
I knew that if I Googled it.
It's all right.
So, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
I didn't vote no on this, but I did have some concerns last year, and Brian, maybe you were here, I know you see, but it just seems like we're spending so much on drain districts, and we've been told it's a necessity. But I still have a lot of concerns, because a lot of this we're covering out of pocket. Some we're not going to get reimbursed for it. So the county as a whole is paying for these districts. Some will be reimbursed by these districts, but why now? And we went for years with one drain in this county. And I know, is it just all development? Is it?
Well, two things. It's just this contract that it's out of pocket. That's not coming back. It's just a general services contract, and that covers a multiple different items that Brian has to go through that come to me. And the districts, everything that goes from a charge to the districts will be paid back once the districts are complete. Some good news, we talked with the last person that we need a lease or an easement from for Lake Bluffs yesterday, and they're on board. So that'll be the last piece to the puzzle on easements. The plans Brian's getting to me, he just got in this week. So we're in the final stages of the planning. It'll go out to bids. I'm guessing January.
February, yeah.
February will
Yep.
go out to bids. So we've got a process we have to go through that I haven't gone through yet to get to the bid point, but that's one that looks very, very, very positive to be completed this coming year. So we'll get some money back into the coffers from that one this coming year. Timberley, Brian tells me that all of the easement documents that we need for Timberley are going to be in my office within a week or two, so we can move forward on garnering leases for Timberley. Schaumburg is the oldest one from 019. We do have a new landowner that is one property upstream from Dufek Road, who has expressed interest in allowing the district to do basically retention basins on their property versus the next property downstream. So that is promising. We met with them 3 weeks ago, and Brian is reconfiguring the shape of those basins. And we're in the process of doing soil borings, which will happen shortly to determine groundwater level. So that one continues to be interesting, and hopefully can get into this coming year also. So we're moving along on these things. It takes an awfully long time that I'm learning. The garnering easements is difficult, but we're making headway. So
That was a Schaumburg one you were talking about, Dufek Road.
yes.
Yeah, so the only one that doesn't, the only one that comes out of the county's coffers is this contract, and this is really for, I look at it, sometimes there's a start of a drain district competition, but it's really to avoid that by having this contract. So there's, things that may turn into a district, but Steve tries to avoid that if all possible. There's ways to work with the county road commissioner, like with MDOT, things like that. So that's a lot of what this contract is for, is kind of to avoid getting to that point.
So would it be true to, I'm sorry, were you not done?
Yeah, so we'll watch what happens. I'm done.
Isn't it true that we know a lot more now about drainage and water levels than we used to? We used to just let things happen, and we're getting smarter.
Yeah, we like to think so, for sure.
Well, at least we're trying to get smarter. We have more information to try to-
That's true. We did, it was 30 years ago almost that we did move forward and got an ordinance in the county, and all of the major developments that happen in the county now have to follow the ordinance that runs through the district office and through me. So almost 100% of the newer projects have significant storage basins for stormwater connected to them. And we found out the last 2 years that they're there for a good reason, and they function quite well. So with a very few exceptions, we've got a really good system going on all of newer build stuff. We're running into situations that I'm dealing with districts that are old situations. Yeah, the South Bar Lake, Brian asked me, there's a concrete sill at the outfall of South Bar Lake, and he wanted to know, well, who set that level? And as I dug back through and made several phone calls, as it turns out, there was a sawmill there in the 1800s, and the sawmill needed a certain amount of water in South Bar Lake to float the logs and run the sawmill. So that's how that concrete sill level was set. So it's all the way back to the 1800s. So we're dealing with that situation for South Bar Lake. And Lake Bluffs went in with no association, gravel road through steep hills, recipe for disaster. And sure enough, there it is. The Timberlea that didn't get finished, same thing. Water pours down and it's rescue vehicles can't get in. So it's old, these old developments or the villages, you know, they went in place with horse and buggy and the mud streets sucked up the water, but that doesn't happen anymore. So now we've got villages that have horrific stormwater problems, and those are hard to deal with. And yeah, we'll probably see more districts as time goes on. There's a couple that I'm anticipating.
I guess that's my point. It's fine if districts, you know, pay for districts. But it's when the rest of the county has to pay for the district, because that's what you think, that's development, that's progress. It's not, maybe we don't, you know, didn't know, etc. These are new developments.
Yeah, no, the only thing, like I said, the county is what it does with the districts is essentially acting as a revolving fund until we get to a point where we have we bid it out for construction and have the final cost and have a date review. Then they're reimbursed those costs as part of it. And the only thing that the county is assessed for is they have to pay half of the cost for it if there's a county road right away involved in the assessment district. And so they pay half of it. And the other half comes from Act 51 monies from the road commission. So that's usually a low percentage, like 5% of the cost or something like that. So yeah, these are, you know, districts are all having to do with prior to the ordinance really is in just, you know, development. Most of the districts I worked on in most counties are now are associated with, the petitions are associated with just, I don't want to say bad development, but just, you know, not proper planning, you know, and there's a lot of stuff from like the 70s and 80s that I'm getting into now in other counties that, you know, when there was a big plat development boom and things like that with housing, where now they're kind of catching up and there's problems associated with it. So
thank you very much.
yep, thank you.
Move on to the park and recognition. That's the monkey business here. Commissioner Walker.
I would move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve the purchase of a monkey business playground set from Playground Boss of McKinley, Texas, in an amount not to exceed $13,610, as outlined in the attached quote. Funds to come from Parks and Recreation Fund as presented. Support.
Any questions?
It's a nice set. It would,
Go ahead.
the neutral, it'd be the neutral, you not the obnoxious primary color set. It would be the neutral set, so it should blend in very well there. And this is for Old Settlers Park.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you for that. That brings us then to boards and commissions. I think we have a list here.
May we take them all together, or do we need to divide them?
I would appreciate it if you did.
Unless someone objects, you could do them all.
Yes.
I have a motion. I move to recommend that we approve all of the recommendations as presented.
Support. Any questions or statements? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Wilson.
And I think we also need to approve the per diem for the veterans.
Yes.
And Melinda made that motion at that meeting.
It's on the last
Sure.
page.
You want me to make it, or are you making it? I would move to recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve a per diem and and mileage reimbursement to any county appointed members of the Veterans Affairs Administration Committee.
Support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Then that brings us then to administration and the board policy investment.
And Darcy, we were
right on time.
Perfect.
Hi. Good morning.
Can we have this on a separate sheet as well?
Good morning. After reviewing the policy that was approved back in August, 2013, there was one minor change that I noticed that needed to be made to the investment policy. The change is just the order of objectives. We're working with public money, so of course, we always want first to be liquid. Well, we want to be safe first, absolutely.
Right.
Then liquid. Then we look at yield, and then we can diversify within the limits of what the law allows us. So the whole point was just to reorder those objectives to put them in line with what we should be doing with public money.
Any questions?
Move to recommend that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve board policy on investments as presented.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0.
Excellent.
Congratulations.
Have a great day.
You too. All right, then that brings us to fiscal year 2020, the copier agreement with Netlinks.
Yeah, you vote on this every year. It's a contract for maintenance for our 16 copier machines, and she knows the cost is actually going down every year. The last couple of years.
Is that because we're getting new machines, or is it?
I think so. I'm not involved in the operation, but between Ron and Darcy, or between Ron and Laurel, they handle it. But they both said this is a good price, and they are very, very proactive. They've got that we do have some issues with machines. A lot of times they come the same day. So it's nice to have that service. As you know, the copy machine breaks down, it does cost, because now they're combination copy, printers, fax machines, emails also. So it's not just the traditional copy machine anymore.
I think there's a typo in the suggested motion. I was going to check with you before, but I didn't. It's a total cost of $10,523.
Oh, yes. Yeah, it looks like there's one extra one there. I'm guessing here, if you do the math, I'm just quickly doing the math. To get to 10,500, we take the,
Chad, I think it should be 20. I think it's 11,660.40 comes from the one fund, and then 9,400.
is that the correct amount? We can correct that by next week. Let me, I honestly don't know, but I see.
So you think the price is $20,523.20?
Well, it would look like,
If you add those two together, that's pretty much. what it-
That's what it gets. I know it's just.
I'll get with
That's like-
Laurel and then correct it.
Commissioner Wessel.
I move to recommend that the Board of Commissioners waive the policy on bid requirements and approve renewing of service maintenance agreements with Netlink for 2022 as presented.
If you look on page 97, it does say the price is $10,523. So I'm guessing instead of, well, we'll correct it for
You
next
got an
week.
extra one in there.
I think there's an extra one in there, yes.
Can I make the recommendation with the correct dollar amount?
Yes, that's what we're
Would that be
counting on.
okay?
Yeah, we're gonna change it next week.
So support. Or you
Start second.
Commissioner Gallagher just did.
All right, and there's the understanding, I will put in the correct amounts after I talk to
Right.
Laurel and Ron.
Yeah, because even those don't add up. Okay. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. And that brings us then to the veteran service agreement renewal.
Yeah, I'm pleased to inform you that we have proposed agreement with Grand Traverse County. This has been a good partnership that's been in existence for many years. I can't tell you when it started before I got here. But the good news is the proposed contract is exactly the same rate as last year, as the year before that, as the year before that, as the year before that. Our last increase was in 2016. And at that time, there were some issues and so forth, and I recommend that we kept it the same. And then I met with the county administrator this fall, and we agreed it's a good partnership and the costs are reasonable for both parties. And so they're recommending, and I'm recommending that we continue the contract for 3 years at the same cost as it's been since 2016.
Commissioner Elder.
I move to recommend that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve entering into a 3-year agreement with Grand Traverse County to provide services to county veterans at an annual rate of $46,618 for each year, funds to come from 801.000.
Support. Mr. Law.
I believe this might have started under Barney's letter, Colonel Barney.
So it's in the 90s.
I do believe. But my questions with this are, Chet, you and I talked about past representatives on this board have felt like they weren't allowed to input, that they were just basically told to sit in a corner and be quiet. They are ex officio. I read that in the contract. And I didn't see any, it still says we're ex officio.
Yeah, they have to be expert, but they will be given the same rights and respect as a full-time member. They will sit at the table. Their input will be valued. We met with the VA director, and we agreed that that's not going to continue in the past. There's some disagreement on what actually happened, but going forward, our county rep will be at the table. We'll have the same rights and privileges of such cannot vote.
Okay, that's a start. I appreciate that a lot. I would thank them for us for that. And why? Because we do contract with them, and we are they one, how many county are they?
Just Grand Traverse.
And yet we can't have a vote. How many?
No, because by the state funding, unless we have an office, we cannot have a vote. It's mandated by the state.
You provide an office, but because we
We
don't have a
a-
sole office?
We need to have an employee, and we don't have an employee, and that's why we were turned down for the grant originally. And I argued that we do provide services, but it is, and I did get a legal opinion several years ago that we do not have a VA office. We have a contract partnership.
Even though we provide office space, and
Yes,
they do provide 1 day a week for
Does
this.
the grant cover this cost?
No, the grant is actually separate, so if you hear on the radio about VA services available in Leelanau County, that's not coming from our money, that's coming from the grant money.
Okay.
The majority of that grant money has to be spent on promoting and advertising VA services. So if you'll see some ads in the enterprise coming
I
up
have heard
almost
that,
every
yeah.
week on WTCM and other stations. And you'll hear them for Calcassa County, Benzie County, Grand Traverse County.
Right.
Those are all part of the state grant that originally were not allowed to participate in, but we got that clarified. There is and I argue that while our veterans have access 5 days a week, because they can come here Tuesday physically, they also at any time can call Grand Traverse County Central Appointment there. We do not have a VA office.
Well, and that advertisement actually states that.
Yeah.
That they can go into Traverse City and be taken care of. for
That's
Leelanau
what I
County.
was going to say. It's
really,
a
really
great,
nice.
we've come along with it. It's very nice. They're open. And that works for a lot of our veterans. That works better than trying even to come up here. So the other thing we got, of course, is it consider the clinic out by Chum's Corners. And they're not, are they still working out of Boardman Avenue? Or are they
No,
working out
they're
of
on Lafreniere.
Lafreniere? Because this says,
The county office technically is on Boardman, but their office is on Lafreniere.
their satellite, no.
But this
okay.
is a contract
That's
between the counties,
It
not
mentions
between the VA office.
Courthouse
Yes,
address. but
yes,
okay.
because that is their official address, just like our address is.
All right. Well, it's come a long way, so I'm happy with.
There was some questions came up from people about the ads, and I assured them that those are not tax dollars, those are grant dollars. They were signed specifically for that cause, to try to get more veterans taking advantage of services. We, since I've been here, we've not had one single complaint from a veteran not getting services. I think we're very good at being very proactive. And for those veterans that are over 60s, that may be struggling financially, work very close with senior services to see if there's some assistance they can get from senior services. And a lot of them have done that also. Vice versa, a veteran comes to senior services office, we encourage them to meet with the VA rep. So it's been a really good partnership.
We have a motion second.
You have a motion in a second, and I was just gonna add to what Chet was saying, we do already have 50,000 of that grant money in hand. So you will see some of those invoices and claims and accounts for those ads. Not all of them, but some of them, so that you will see that.
Any other questions or statements?
Seconded by myself.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. And that brings us to NACO.
Yeah, this is only my third request in the 10 years I've been here. We were not a member of NACO. I thought they provide a lot of services, so I recommend and would agree to join NACO. I went to the conference by myself in 2016. It was a very good educational experience. As you remember, I brought back a packet for each board member on many topics. I recommend in 2019 that our board chairman go. And I believe, Mr. Bunnick, you would agree that was a great experience for you. We personally got to meet with our state senators, with the congressmen, some of the speakers that I saw in 2016 and 2019 were Senator McCain, Governor Romney, various members of the White House administration. Senator McConnell spoke, and there were a lot of breakout sessions. And I suggested once again that our chairman go. Mr. Bunnick graciously thinks another board member should get that opportunity. So I thought it was very generous on his part to suggest that. So in the proposal, you have a copy of their tentative agenda on the breakout. I do recommend, if you wish to approve this, we do this quickly, because last time, wait till January, and Mr. Bunnick and I got stuck in different hotels that we had to walk to the conference every day because they book up very quickly. From Northern Michigan, actually, I was amazed how many counties are represented. Otsego had 5 members of their 7-member board at the conference. I was kind of surprised at, but many counties are there, not all from Michigan, but there are breakout sessions for Michigan counties also. But I think Mr. Bunnick would agree it was a very
Oh, yeah,
worthwhile.
I've met with Senator Peters and Stabenow and Jack Bergman. Also went to the White House and did a tour of the White House. Then had Betty DeVos, Larry Kudlow speak, and just many other people as well. Those are the ones I just remember. It's really a great conference to go to. Yes.
Since you are graciously offering that to go, and since I didn't know we could go to the MAC conference in Mackinac, I would love to. I know you're not going to decide.
Well, you could just approve this
I'm
and
just
give us some
thinking
thought for next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Because it could be more than one person also. That's up to you. But I'm saying we should get the recommendation, the approval, so we can get the hotel room. You can't book the hotel rooms until you register for the conference.
Right.
I move to recommend that the Leelanau County Board of Commissioners approve the out-of-state travel request to the National Association of Counties Legislative Conference, February 12 through 16, 2022 in Washington, DC, for the county administrator and commissioners. Funds to come from account ending in .860.000.
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Robinson. Any other questions or statements? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
And if you could think about between now and next Tuesday, who's interested in make that decision next week, and how many you wish to send.
All those opposed say no. Thompson.
Let's vote, right? I apologize.
Motion passes 6-0.
I apologize. I thought the vote was taken.
It's all right. We do have to give those a chance.
I'm sorry.
Not much.
No,
Anyway, then that brings us to administrator job description.
At our last meeting, when we were talking about the job description for the finance director and HR director, Commissioner Rushton said we probably should at some point look at the job description for the administrator. And that's simply, and she has to put it on the agenda, so that's why it's on the agenda. But she's not here. So you have a copy of it.
That's interesting, Reed. I've got a question I'll ask you after the meeting
Okay.
about it.
All right, any other questions or statements about it? All right, then we go to the board goals for this year 2022.
I just thought I'd put that on the agenda, see if you want to get started or go with the January. I know Commissioner Robinson's talked about doing that. And since the 7 of you are coming back next year, you can actually start goals anytime, if you wish to do goals.
Any questions or statements about that? This time?
I would like to continue. I think some of our goals are things that we need to continue making progress on. We need to continue making progress on racism. As we gain more tools, awareness, get smarter about drainage subjects, all of that, I think we need to continue to be proactive. I have to say, I don't remember the other. I'd like us to continue our work. On at least a couple of those.
Broadband and internet were major priorities for some of the goals, which obviously you are working on.
Yeah, that's a
There's a difference between continuation versus new goals also. Like for years, we always talk about MERS being a goal. Well, that's not a goal. I mean, every year you do that, so that really should be a goal. Goals normally are kept no more than 4 or 5, and new projects or new goals or new objectives versus ongoing projects. For example, the internet, the towers, you're going to deal with that next year during the ARPA funding request. One thing a new goal could be, because it's brought up, restructuring of the dam authority. You talked about changing that potentially, instead of being mandated as a road commission serve on it, you people can apply and you appoint people to dam authority. That'd be an example of a new goal if you want to restructure that. And DPW also. But a lot of things that you're doing could just be ongoing projects.
I mean, did you ever get any report back from that engineer that had to look at the base and lower level? Or help?
Oh, no, yeah, that's gonna be next Tuesday on the,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Just to give a brief update, I met with John Richards, Dodie Putney, Gary O'Connor, and Eric Johnson about potential that Mr. Bunnick suggested about looking at potential space. So he's gonna look at that, also the cost of a storage warehouse. And he probably won't have it probably by next week, but be definitely before the end of the year. I asked him to come up with some ballpark estimate to see if we want to proceed with that. So that would maybe be a good, if we think that's a possibility, that'd be a new objective. Yeah.
And maybe the facilities manager position that we talked about.
Speaking of that, Mr. O'Connor has started the process. He's working. He has visited the parks, has visited all the tower sites too, because we forget that we have tower sites with buildings on it also. And so he's working on that. He's here every Thursday focusing just on that report. And at some point, you'll get an update on that also, a full report on that. What you could do is just between now and next Tuesday, think about goals that you'd like to see. If you want to email them to me, I'll be glad to put together a pack, at least start the dialogue on that.
Continue our work on housing. That's a really big deal. And we've got some tools.
For example, that's a great example between that and MERS. That has been a focus for 6-7 years. So that really is not a new goal. That's only just a continuation.
Okay.
The next thing would be end of the year special session.
Yeah, we always have an end of the year special sessions. We'd like to confirm that date because I know your calendars get
On the
busy.
31st.
We suggested the 29th.
29th.
We're closed the 31st.
Okay.
That's right. I'm happy to come, but no one else will be happy.
So the suggested potential agenda items are approval of minutes, approval of accounts payable, approval of year-end budget amendments and transfers. Our medical examiner contract expires this year. Grand Traverse County is going to be voting on that next week, so if they approve it, I'd like to have that extended again. Potential agreement of labor contracts. I'm optimistic we'll have some labor contracts that we could potentially ratify, and also potential non-union wage adjustment.
Are we closed on the 30th too?
The 2 court offices are, my office will be open, the court section, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with yet, but we're open for business overall, majority of us.
So could that also be a possibility?
The 30th?
Yeah,
29th is best for me.
yeah, at some point, someone recommended the 29th, that's why.
I asked for the
Okay.
29th so we could get the checks in the mail and get them out to people.
This usually is not a long meeting. We could start at 9 or 1. Or the 30th, so it's up
I
to,
have all day. What works? Is there a better time?
But for me personally, the 30th works better than the 29th, but I can bring all my grandkids and kids.
they may make the meeting go much quicker.
It should be
Or
a
not.
relatively short meeting, usually it's not set up to be controversial, it's just
And-
bills.
Pretty routine.
And sometimes we don't have all 7 commissioners there just for schedules, but we try not to put anything controversial on the agenda.
Yeah, we always do.
I always prefer one, but you know what, if you've got your grandkids here, you just want to get it over with.
I will live with whatever. It'll be short.
29th?
Yeah. I would say the 29th, we make it at 9:30 or 9, just make it at 9.
9:30 would be nice. Do you mind?
9:30 would be best if you can't go with 1, but we'll live with 9:30.
9:30 is fine.
Oh, you prefer one?
We'll take 9:30, that works for the best of you.
Let's go 9:30.
I can do one also.
We'll just prepare, we'll be ready.
1:15.
It's really okay.
Right.
Do 3 o'clock and then.
What-
we could go.
Or 3:15.
Okay, folks, what time?
You pick it.
9:30.
9:30, going once, going twice.
So
Sold for 9:30.
All right, so. Do we need a motion for that, or it's just?
No, I just need 3 of you to sign this.
Okay. All right, then that brings us to a labor union agreement.
Yeah, just a quick update. We're having another session this Friday, and Commissioner Buddick, thank you for agreeing to sit in on those. Commissioner Buddick and Commissioner Lauter have been part of our team, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll have agreements for you to hopefully ratify by the end of the year. Cautiously optimistic. I'll leave it at that. I will put this on agenda for next Tuesday night to give you more details on how Friday went. We have a kind of agreement with one union already. And I'm hoping that by Friday or the following Friday, we'll have agreements with all of them. Hopefully.
Any questions or statements? Sure, thank you. Thank you for that update, and we'll move on to review financials.
I had, thing I wanted to ask about. I'm not gonna remember it, and didn't write it down. You know, how it works. It's even been in.
Email us,
I will.
because you're gonna get a whole nother scoop by next week, and we can respond to all the commissioners.
It might have even been in post audit, so I'll look. It wasn't anything major, but it was one thing that I had a question about.
Do we have any special reports? Commissioner Wetzel?
Just update on the CEO search process for community mental health. We have narrowed it down to 2 finalists for candidates. They will be interviewing in January, pending approval of the full board of the community mental health in December. 1 internal and 1 external candidate.
Anyone else? Well, that brings us to public comment. Any public comment here? No? Commissioner comments?
Sorry about that, but
Any commissioner comment?
I don't think we're barring.
Seeing none, then we'll move on to approval of financials. Don't have any amendments or transfers?
Not today, but you will next week.
All right.
Recommend to the Board of Commissioners to approve claims and accounts $49,461.92.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same, say no. Motion passes. I think she had to leave.
Yes, she had an appointment.
Okay,
So
so
it passes 5-0. All right, that brings us to post audit.
Recommend approval of post audit $2,322,372.63.
Support.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion passes 5-0. We are adjourned.